Hi, welcome to the Municipal Cybersecurity Building the Last Mile of Resiliency panel. I'm Stephanie Helm, and I'm the director of the Massachusetts Cybersecurity Center. Joining me today are three distinguished public servants who are serving as part of the Baker-Polito administration for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and they'll be talking with us today about cybersecurity for municipalities. I will be joined by Mike Keneally, who's the Secretary of the Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development, Curtis M. Wood, the Secretary of the Executive Office of Technology Services and Security, and Undersecretary Jean Benincasa-Thorpe, who is the Undersecretary for Homeland Security of the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security. Their full biographies are available on the RSA conference platform, and you'll be able to find more information about them if you are interested. Today, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about cybersecurity in Massachusetts and our role in improving municipal cybersecurity. I'm at the Mass Cyber Center, which is a division of the Mass Tech Collaborative, which is a quasi-state agency which focuses on tech and innovation in Massachusetts. Part of the Mass Cyber Center's mission is to work with the cybersecurity ecosystem to support cybersecurity initiatives in the state. But we also have a role in looking at resiliency and how cybersecurity is affecting the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The topic that we have today, building that last mile of resiliency, reaching out to the local communities, is very challenging. And there are probably many of you on this panel, watching this panel today, that can probably feel the challenges of reaching out to every local city and town. In the context of what the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is dealing with, we have 351 separate cities and towns. We don't have a county system that organizes the IT architecture. Each town sets up its own IT architecture and therefore owns its cybersecurity problem. Cybersecurity is a priority for our state. The creation of the Mass Cyber Center was one effort. And part of that, to build the resiliency, was the creation of the Cyber Resilient Massachusetts Working Group. The Mass Cyber Center convenes this working group once a month, and we talk about issues relating to resiliency. One priority that has come up frequently has been the challenges facing municipalities for cybersecurity. So we have been looking at cybersecurity at municipalities for quite a while, and in 2019, the state of Massachusetts was selected for a National Governors Association cybersecurity policy workshop. In that workshop, we brought together state agencies, representatives from local communities to examine how we can improve what we have for cybersecurity to support municipal efforts. And as an outcome of that, I have the three secretaries represented here today because they're the substantial leads in many of the efforts that we have facing municipal cybersecurity. So first, I'm going to turn to Secretary Wood, who's the Secretary for the Executive Office of Technology Services and Security. Secretary Wood, as the state CIO, what are your responsibilities for cybersecurity at the state level? And how do you interact with municipalities?
Well, thank you, Stephanie, and good day to all you folks out there. Hope everybody's well. So our Executive Office of Technology Services and Security was created in 2017 by Governor Baker in order to put a primary focus on investment in our enterprise technology services, modernization, and cybersecurity. So over the last several years, our organization has moved forward to centrally managing our enterprise security services for our 9 executive branch agencies, our 9 cabinets, and our 125 plus executive branch agencies. Each organization works within our main office of our Executive Office of Security. We have a Chief Information Security Officer who has responsibility to ensure that we have the enterprise information security policies and standards established across the executive branch of government. Other state agencies who also participate within our network and infrastructure also are bound by our policies and procedures as well. So the last several years, we've really focused on, several areas, including certainly security operations, vulnerability management programs, threat monitoring, threat hunting, things of that nature at the enterprise level. Working on an enterprise security awareness education program for our employee workforce, and really working to strengthen our DNA, our fabric, our security fabric across the executive branch of government, working with our public safety partners, our national federal partners, as well as to really kind of build out the capacity, the monitoring capabilities, and to protect the data and the assets of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Specific to our municipal partners, we work routinely with these folks day to day. Certainly, they have their own responsibility, as we do as well. However, we work in an area to collaborate with these folks for information sharing, providing resources as needed. In our office, we do actually have a full-time Office of Municipal and School Technology that was created several years ago that focuses on providing services and grant funding to our municipal partners through a program through our Lieutenant Governor's office. We work very closely with Secretary Keneally and his team and others at Public Safety and Homeland Security to make sure that, we have the right focus for our municipal partners. We're working on programs such as, a health check, where we've provided some services by a vendor who works with us to be able to provide security awareness and training and phishing campaigns for many of our municipalities and schools. We've also heavily invested in technology planning and modernization through our state grant programs and our state capital programs to work with our municipalities to ensure that they have the appropriate resiliency, and of course working with your office as well. And what we really believe at the end of the day is very, very important here is really for all of us to be working together. We believe our cybersecurity of the Commonwealth is a collective responsibility from a state government, from county systems as well. Although we don't have county government, we do have sheriffs and district attorneys' offices that are county-based, that are elected officials that we work with, our independent agencies and constitutionals, and of course our municipal partners. So, we're all in this together to make a more secure Commonwealth. So that's what our responsibility and what we've been focusing on the last several years.
That's great. So it's a combination of services as well as grant programs that you have available to work with the municipalities. So that's great.
That's correct.
Undersecretary Benincasa Thorpe, you're in the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security, and you're the Homeland Security Director. In your role, how do you support the municipal cybersecurity?
Oh, well, good afternoon, everyone. And I just wanted to give a thanks out to Stephanie Helms and her incredible team to pull all this together over the last several years. I think it's been with that effort that Executive Office of Public Safety and the agencies that are under us, which is about 13, are able to come together, work with stakeholders, public and private, to share best practices and also understand the gaps within our state and what we need to do as an agency to address those. Cybersecurity is in itself a fundamental part of Homeland Security, especially for our agency. It's very similar to like sharing intelligence and hardening the potential infrastructure for the targets. Cybersecurity takes a very, very important role in that. With that, and I know that you've mentioned, and Secretary Wood has been a champion at rolling out these cybersecurity resilience plans. But I know, as if you said, Stephanie, that it is a priority for the Baker-Polito administration, and how they have gone out and created a system of the cybersecurity working group like you have, and then the EOTS organization and the Mass Tech Collaborative that Secretary Keneally has, all shows that we are working together. We're working as a group, so there's not one stop failure here. And under EOPS, we have 13 public safety agencies, and some that are constantly within the communities that are always talking to the municipal, whether they're leaders, fire, police, our Department of Fire Services, Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, the National Guard, the Fusion Center, which is the intel heartbeat of Massachusetts when it comes to cybersecurity and criminal activity. And we also have an agency called the Office of Grants and Research, which pools all of the funding coming from Homeland Security and FEMA that I'm allowed, and my agencies are allowed to go and apply for, where we can really take a good look at what's out there in the communities and what is needed through programs. So that's been a very good asset for municipalities, both public and private sectors is to apply to some of these grants that are coming through. And then working with our partners, our stakeholders on the Homeland Security strategy plan that's being rolled out has been extremely helpful to understand what our roadmap is. So we hit those programs, we hit those municipalities that are needing that support and resources through the grant funding. So that's been very, for us, very, very successful. We also, with the grant money coming in from Homeland Security and FEMA and some other entities out in Washington, we've been able to fund things like we've hired a cybersecurity director that goes out to the communities, that meets with some of these municipalities. We've created a cyber incident coordination policy working with our partners over at EOTS to help us understand what is needed through our agencies, our 13 agencies, what's needed if there's a cyber event, how do we help, how do we mitigate, how do we prepare for it. EOTS has been a champion at that with us. We've been able to start an academy to start training the state and local law enforcement on cybersecurity, forensics, and investigations that partner with our federal partners, both FBI and Secret Service, to help put folks on the bench. If there is a big cyber event, how do we go and respond and mitigate and restore? We're hoping that this training academy helps those municipal leaders out there that can help when we do have to restore that. So that's been very, very, very successful. The other thing is, like we talked about, is the grant monies. Again, you really need the grants monies to develop these programs, to have the policies roll out. And, we're fortunate enough to be working with great secretariats that we sometimes share the funding coming in for cybersecurity tabletops and programs and full-scale exercises. The grant money that comes in is working through the Office of Grants and Research, where we will receive the funds from Washington, D.C. DHS, and then we have a state share of money, and I roll that state share money over to the Homeland Security Advisory Councils. And as you mentioned earlier, Stephanie, that our state is a commonwealth, and we have 351 independent municipalities, cities, and towns that are operating independent of each other. These Homeland Security Councils are regional, and they pull together adjacent towns and cities that can work together, share resources and grants, and address problems collectively. We are able to send the monies over to the Homeland Security Councils. They, in turn, are embedded into the communities. They understand what's going on. They know how to address it, working with the municipal leaders. That's one way in which we can farm out the monies to the right people for the right reasons. And it's been successful. They've been in play, I believe, since 2003. And they're a collective group of people representing all different agencies and disciplines. So they've been able to really help define, along with your group and your meetings, of where the gaps are, how can we address them, and what is needed. So we've been able to use that funding from that. And again, we funded the Cybersecurity Center's statewide summit for the municipal leaderships. Again, something that's a resource that those municipal leaders will really take in and enjoy and really learn from. So unfortunately, COVID has kept us apart. I haven't, seen too many of us in person, but I think that, I applaud the RSA to do this conference and have these panels together, because this is it. This is what we have to learn, to mitigate, to share best practices. It's a great way to get out there when we're not able to do it in person.
Thank you. Yes, the federal funding is really helpful in terms of being able to provide some opportunities for us to have additional activities. So that's a good match with the state funding that we've had. For Secretary Keneally, from your perspective in housing and economic development, I know that you've been a supporter of Mass Cyber Center along the way, because I get my funding through you. So some of the things that we've been able to do has been very helpful. But how would you describe the relationship of cybersecurity in our communities and its impact on our economic posture?
Yeah, it's a great question, Stephanie, and great to be with you all today, my colleagues here in the administration. And Stephanie, thanks for all the work you do at the Cyber Center. It's really been, I think, an enormously important effort over the years now, and really helping to both position us as a leader in the sector, but also help our cities and towns stay safe. And so in that question, it's absolutely critical. In our office here, we are very much partners with our individual 351 cities and towns, helping them to realize their development objectives. We work in close coordination with all of our municipal leaders on a variety of things. And so it's absolutely essential that they are safe from a cybersecurity standpoint, that the communities are protected. You think about how much more we're all doing online these days, telework, telehealth, other technology offerings. It becomes even more important now in this post-COVID-19 economy that those networks are safe. We can do more things safely online. And obviously the threats are rising. So we got to be more sophisticated in our view of what cyber safety means, and work in close partnership with our cities and towns to help them out in that regard. It's also, cybersecurity is really critical for our innovation economy. Generally, we are one of the top states for innovation, one of the top places for innovation anywhere in the world. We are, in my account, we're the world's leading life sciences ecosystem. We're a global leader in software and advanced manufacturing and digital health and lots of exciting areas. And we're a leader in cybersecurity as well. And so not only is this a strategy we have to make sure we employ across our municipalities to help them stay safe, we also think about this as an important part of our innovation economy, as a sector we want to grow and maintain a leadership position in. It's also critical to our economic recovery. And I'll give you an example. We rolled out a comprehensive economic recovery strategy last October called Partnerships for Recovery. And the thought is to have a kind of focus on 5 main areas. And one of those simply is getting people back to work. We had unemployment pre-COVID-19 that was less than 3%. That number got up to a little over 17% over the summer. It's happily back now in single digits today, but still there's a lot of folks that are unemployed, and we got to get back to work. Well, we're deploying various tools now to help them do that. And so through our Mass Broadband Institute, for example, working in close collaboration with our labor and workforce development colleagues, we launched something called Mass Internet Connect. And it's a program that offers internet and device subsidies, as well as a variety of digital literacy supports to job seekers to help them stay connected to online resources and job search tools and training programs. Well, we need robust cybersecurity to make sure they have access to those tools. And it's going to be very important to help people get back to work. Now, in terms of our efforts in workforce generally around cyber, we're very focused on trying to grow our workforce here in the Commonwealth in cybersecurity and make that workforce even more diverse. And so we've been so proud to support the Mass Cyber Center's offerings in that regard, the cybersecurity training and education working groups, the cybersecurity mentorship program. This is an exciting place to build a career. And if we get more people ready for those careers and make sure the talent pipeline is as diverse as possible, such that those careers are open to really everybody in the Commonwealth that wants to embark on that, I think that's going to serve us well, both in terms of a cyber safety standpoint, if you will, but also in terms of growing this exciting part of the innovation economy.
That really is an important component. I know that we often are invited to participate with healthcare organizations and financial technology organizations to help think about how cybersecurity can be better integrated to some of the efforts that they're making. And that's just going to continue as part of that. And the citizens of Massachusetts, the more that they are aware of cybersecurity, they're able to make it that they can operate the economy online safely.
That's
so
right.
That's an important component. So, well, I'm going to ask a general question to all of you, and I'll start with Secretary Wood on this one. There are so many activities that we have ongoing in the state. What's some of the ways, Secretary Wood, that you're able to synchronize efforts that you want to do from your executive office?
Well, and that's a great question. And I think, what I would say in Massachusetts, we're a relatively small state from a geographic perspective. Population is significant. However, we have a long-standing, community of interest here in cybersecurity, and I think in technology overall. Secretary Keneally has mentioned, and Undersecretary Benincasa Thorpe has talked about this relationships in the regional. I think, where our office comes in is really, we've been an executive branch agency, of course, and our organization is starting to focus more and more about collaboration and information sharing, and I think communications is really the essential component of what we're really talking about here. And I would say from a cybersecurity perspective, it's no longer about the IT aspect of it. I think when I first, took this organization over several years ago, and even my experience in the past, IT security, security's always been focused more on the IT aspect of things. And I think we've really matured over the past several years, especially to think about security in a different way. We need to think about security from a business perspective. We need to think about education awareness. It really is, a core competency of an executive today. I look at, an agency head within state government or a business. Those folks today need to be able to make sure they understand the finances. They need to understand, certainly social awareness, in data and cybersecurity or security. We cannot conduct government business. We cannot conduct business as a whole without understanding the security aspect. And the more we go down this road, the more and more we learn, the more and more we challenge ourselves. And I think our organization has started to really think more about collaborating and more about, focusing on the business side of things. The technology is the technology security framework that we have in place, and the technology services that we have are certainly critical, but it's really about people, process, and things as well. And we're also blessed in Massachusetts that we're really in a hub of really bright people, technology, innovation. And I think within our administration, we have a committed governor. When Governor Baker came in 2015, he really turned the IT and the cybersecurity on its head. I think he's the first governor, and I've served through 9 governors, just so you know. So I've been around a few years. This is the first administration that's actually invested in this from a technology perspective and from a focus on security, and more importantly about collaboration. I think we have a great commitment to our municipalities. We don't get caught up in the us versus them mentality. Our entire administration, all of our 9 cabinet members, our secretaries are all, on the ground, all meeting routinely with our folks and our partners at the municipal level. Our state agencies talk with each other. If we have an issue, we work it out. We're all in this for the common good. So I think, our organization is super focused on that to make sure that, we have the right understanding of what's going on. We have a right path forward, and we start to build out, and continue to build out this social fabric of, security and awareness, and, certainly from a technology roadmap. I think over the past year, from a COVID perspective, we've also learned, to prioritize certain things, understanding technology and the mobility. Our administration is focused on digital to make sure that the services that we provide our citizens, our residents, our visitors, our business in the Commonwealth, we want to make sure that our systems and services are made available to people in the way they conduct their lives in their personal business and their professional business. And with that, certainly challenges us from a security perspective. So we want to make sure that we focus on that. We want to make sure that we understand it, that we provide the most secure infrastructure and services and awareness to all of our landscape. So again, meetings like this are very critical. I think we talk quite a bit about things with each other at the cabinet level, and our agency heads collaborate. Gene mentioned the regional with our Homeland Security Advisory Councils and working with the folks. I think overall in Massachusetts, we're a very very small state in a lot of ways, and I think we have that ability to kind of talk to the folks, and we have good business relationships. And more importantly, we have personal relationships with all of our folks at the municipal level. And I think there's a level of trust. Certainly not everybody gets along with each other every day of the week. We all get that. People have different priorities. We all understand that. But I think I can say proudly that in Massachusetts that, we have a really good, strong working relationship with our legislature, with our municipal government, and with our state government. And overall, I think, it shows Massachusetts is a leader in many areas. And I'm very proud to be part of that. So we look forward to this continued success.
Thank you. And Secretary Keneally, you talked about many verticals and many initiatives for the economic recovery. How does that get synchronized with a lot of the efforts that we're doing in the cybersecurity continuum?
Well, I think Kurt said it well. We're a very, very collaborative place, and the fact that we have this working group with, I think it's 40 participating agencies, municipalities, folks in the business community. That's really how we get things done here in Massachusetts. We collaborate, state and local government, academia, private industry, coming together to identify important challenges and opportunities and working on those together. So it's very much in our DNA in terms of how we operate. And Kurt's exactly right in terms of our view of our partnership with municipalities, where pre-COVID we traveled all the time. out always in our cities and towns. I'm starting to get back to doing some of that now, and I miss it. But there's no substitute for being there on the ground, meeting with municipal leaders, understanding the challenges and opportunities they face, and having that spirit of collaboration. And really does start at the top. I mean, Governor Baker, both in terms of identifying cyber as a strategic area of focus, but also setting the tone around partnership and collaboration. There's no question that that's where it comes from. You think about the things, the resources we've compiled to help our municipalities and citizens, for that matter. This municipal toolkit we have it helps municipal leaders understand their individual cybersecurity posture and figure out next steps to protect their infrastructure. It's a really, I think, very valuable toolkit. In 2020, we held a series of incident response planning workshops for municipalities, helping them to build their response plans. We have a public service awareness campaign called Life's Work at Home, provides citizens with the tools to collaborate to secure their information and cybersecurity recommendations. So there's a lot going on, but trying to get all these diverse stakeholders together and talk about the issues, I think that's where it begins.
That's a good point. And Undersecretary Benincasa Thorpe in Public Safety, you mentioned all the different agencies that you have between the Fusion Center and the National Guard and MEMA, who have been all very busy during COVID. How are you able to synchronize all the efforts for cybersecurity?
A great question, and my two colleagues here are absolutely correct with collaboration. I really make it a best practice to contact Secretary Wood at all levels when it comes to cybersecurity, whether it's even interviewing the cybersecurity director, down to the coordination policy we put out, just ensure that we're in sync with each other, that we are coordinating the efforts moving out and responding to the needs of the communities, municipalities, and stakeholders, state entities. The other thing that being under the public safety network, we were always in the communities for COVID, whether we was delivering PPEs, tents, vaccines, or testing. We were always in touch with them and what was needed, when it was needed, and how it was needed. So for our communications, it's never ended. In fact, it's intensified over COVID because of the needs of the communities. We've put together a COVID task force that the governor ran, and not only were they asking for help for the tests, the testing for the municipalities or the vaccines, they were asking for cybersecurity help. Their school systems could be hit. Their healthcare centers were compromised. This was an ongoing conversation because we are, as I said, embedded with the community. So it isn't that we have the 13 agencies and we're sort of isolated in a box. Executive public safety, they are boots on the ground, first responders in all aspects, whether it's a disaster, the COVID pandemic, or it's a cybersecurity event. We have to be in touch with our communities at all times because when it's a compromise, it affects the community. So we've been able to work with the Fusion Center that puts out and disseminates information, daily practices, resources to all of the law enforcements. We worked with the Secretary of State on the elections when it came to cybersecurity. We had DFS talking to folks about what their needs were. There were many opportunities, and we will continue speaking about cybersecurity because it is going to impact our communities, our citizens, and our stakeholders. I've also been able to step aside from the municipalities, but also reach the large venues, like the large venue task force the governor put together a few years ago. What we had to use and talk and meet together was about cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is a potential threat for all of our large venues who house our citizens who will go to all these events. And if there's a breach or a vulnerability or a cyber attack, it's going to hit those large venues. We need to know what's going on. We need them to understand that they have to hit certain levels of their cyber posture in order to ensure that our citizens are safe going to their large venues. And with the pause of COVID, that a year ago was a very high priority for us, is to ensure that that isn't a single target. And if it is, what are we doing about it? What assessments are we working on? And again, bringing them together with your working group, having these tabletops in cybersecurity large full-scale exercises, brings the whole component together to practice going through a cyber event, which will touch upon someone somewhere at one point. So for us, public safety needs to stay ahead of it. That is where we need to be, not behind a disaster or a response, but ahead of it. So as much as we can do is sending out information through our 13 agencies, through EOT's agencies and his stakeholders, through our large venues and private sectors, we're constantly in communications, and that's where we need to be, and that's where we will be, because cybersecurity is a big threat.
Yeah, it is a very top of mind issue. For that reason, we did make the application and were selected for the National Governors Association policy workshop in 2019. I'm going to start with Secretary Wood. If you think back to the preparation that we did for that workshop and then the event itself, where we kind of did a deep dive on the cybersecurity issues from municipalities. For the other states that are potentially thinking about doing an NGA workshop, what would you say is some feedback from that whole process that we went through?
That's a great question, and I'll try to keep it simple. Anytime that you have an opportunity to sit down in a room with folks, from different sectors and different perspectives, I think is important. Like I said, I've been a career government employee, 45 years, all at state government level. And I've had the distinct honor of working, partnering with federal government agencies and state agencies, other states, and municipals and county government. And I think what we need to remember is that we really are all in this together. And at the state level, what I can say is that we've been fortunate over the past 4 or 5 years, 6, 7 years, that we've had an administration that has focused on this, that they recognize the threat. They've made these significant investments. And I think, unfortunately, I don't think that's the case yet at the municipal level. So I think, what I would strongly focus on is making sure that there's an awareness, making sure that, the state and our municipal partners continue to work together. As a state, we should, as an administration in any state, I think, we should leverage we should leverage state government to help where needed, where wanted, because, it's not always, that way. So we need to be respectful of that. We need to be respectful of a municipality. There's a big difference between a tiny municipality and a large, metropolitan area, from a financial perspective, a skill set perspective, talent, level of threat. But at the end of the day, we're all in this together. So I think, my biggest recommendation is to do something about it. You don't need to wait for an NGA Policy Academy. You don't need to wait for a grant. I think there are other ways to do this. And I do think that, the more communications and the more, handout, shake hand, kind of in-person meeting, listen, pick up a phone, understand what this is all about, and be there and be willing to help, be willing to listen, be willing to, kind of part with some wisdom, part with some funding, to get us to a better place. So I think, that would be my biggest, recommendation. I think, we've been together now for a year and a half, so a couple of years now, kind of working on this. And I think we've built some really great relationships. We've advanced some relationships. I think, we've benefited each other, from a strategy perspective and from a discussion perspective. And, I think those are meaningful areas that I think are long lasting and long standing. So I think it's the commitment. It's the understanding. It's not an afterthought here. You really should, focus. And I think one final thought I would say, in my perspective, there is that, we need to make sure that our political leadership at the local level understands this too. It's just not the IT guy or IT gal at the local municipality that should bear all this responsibility to make sure that their cybersecurity systems or their systems are secure. It's really about ownership. And we need to teach and educate our local leadership, whether it be the town manager or the town, selectmen or aldermen or whomever it may be, that it's everybody's responsibility at a municipal and a state level. And I urge people to consider that when they go in to talk this, make it about education, make it about something that's critical, and try to bring it home to what the impact is to them when we don't pay attention to these most important things. That's what I would recommend. I think that's what we're able to do over the past year or so, or year and a half, 2 years with this this great effort by the group.
Yeah, I thought the NGA workshop was kind of helpful in that, having somebody who was on our side, but
Right.
was outside asking tough questions about how do you do these things was kind of helpful to get us kind of focused on the issue.
Yeah, sometimes we miss the obvious. I think, we just kind of, we're so deep in the weeds at times. It's nice to have a facilitator that can help you out there. I agree with you.
The last question I'm going to pose to you all, because we're closing in at the end of our time, and I'll start with Undersecretary Benincasa Thorpe. We talked a lot about the importance and the value of communication. If you could just briefly say, in terms of communicating from a public safety perspective about cybersecurity to municipalities, what do you think is the most important tool that you have available to you now that you're using to engage municipalities on the importance of cybersecurity?
I think that it's a combination. I don't, after going through COVID, I don't rely on just one tool for communications because, again, there's always that point of failure. I think COVID has really brought out the whole opportunity to do the Zoom calls or these panels right now where you don't actually need to leave and you can attend as many as you are able to, right? And I feel that at this point, there are no excuses not to get involved, not to hear what's going on, not to stay active because you have this opportunity now. I think that that's a really big thing. I think constantly pushing out information through MEMA, Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, whether it's a dashboard on what's going on in the state and the situational awareness, we are now going to start putting cyber events in there as well. The Fusion Center creating distributions of resources and information and cyber events that have happened out throughout the country and with our own state, and giving the reader of this information, whether it's law enforcement, municipalities, fire, police, it gives them a sense that, yes, this is real. These events are happening in other states. This is what they're doing about it. So the newsletter, the information dissemination that's going out through Fusion Center, again, that is the heartbeat of our state. It receives all of the criminal activities and it pushes out what we're doing about it. We have now capitalized on that feature of their sort of brains into the community. Their reach into the communities is far better than any of our agencies that work with us because they have been doing this for years. It is their job to inform and it is their job to retrieve information. So between the BRIC, which is the Boston, area for the Fusion, and our statewide Fusion Center, they're capturing information throughout the country that they can disseminate through our own communities on what's happening. So communication's a big thing. And I have to kind of give a shout out to NGA. I think the NGA has been a source of my communications where I've reached out to them multiple times to find out best practices, benchmarks, other state activities, what's happening, what are they hearing, and what can we do? They have been resilient with that. They've been giving us as much as they can. They have partnered me up with other state HSAs. They have given us that workshop that I thought was a great launching pad for Massachusetts in order to start our cybersecurity resiliency plan. It provided us some gaps where our plans were not working. It was really a great opportunity. Again, it's those opportunities like our resources, our stakeholders that are federal, our stakeholders that are local, and then using the existing resources we have with the state that already embedded into the communities, like your fusion centers, your emergency management agencies, your national guards that are constantly with your communities. So it's reaching out to them, they're reaching out. It's constant communications. Like when you don't hear something, you need to call in because there is enough information to be out there.
Secretary Kenneally, I'm going to give you the last word, I think, because we're just about out of time, but the important role of how do you communicate with municipalities at this time?
Well, it's a good question, Stephanie. And first of all, I just want to highlight the fact that we have a Mass Cyber Center, I think is really important. It highlights our commitment to the sector. And the fact that we have the Cyber Resilient Massachusetts Working Group is also important. When you put these groups together, I think it's a statement of importance and collaboration. We work closely with our cities and towns on so many matters. I imagine through the Cyber Center, we'll continue to have webinars and workshops. Looking forward to many more in-person meetings too at some point soon. But we'll keep up the communication. Secretary Wood brought up a great point. We have We have 351 cities and towns, as you said a few times, and they're all very different. And I think people outside the state, when they think Massachusetts, they might first think of Boston or Greater Boston. We have many, many cities and towns, small towns, rural towns, smaller cities. We got a great diversity of communities. So staying in close touch with them and understanding their unique needs is really important for us in so many aspects of our work.